Welcome, everybody. I am very happy to have you here today. My name is Stina Cowan. I am the Cultural and Educational Programs Manager at the National Nordic Museum. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this third event in our Meet the Author series. And today we are happy to welcome Danish author Lisbeth Zornig Andersen, as well as translator Mark Mussari. I'd like to remind everybody once again to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras. Before we get started, I want to mention a few things. Please look at our website for other events that are coming up. We have a lot of fun things coming up this week even, and for the rest of the year. And then the next year, of course, starts off with a slate of great programs and exhibits. We are currently closed to the public, but hope to open again in the new year. After the conversation today, there will be a chance to ask questions, but if you think of questions during the talk, please feel free to write them in the chat function on your screen, and then we'll get to them towards the end. This series is in collaboration with Elizabeth DeNoma, and we are so fortunate to get to work with Elizabeth. Some of you might already know her, but for those of you who don't, Dr. Elizabeth DeNoma is the founder and editorial director of DeNoma Literary Services, and she has a deep expertise in international literature. She worked at the University of Washington, and that's also where she earned her PhD in Scandinavian languages and literature. She most recently worked at Amazon Crossings as a senior editor, acquiring and editing global literature for translation into English. She regularly leads panels and publishing industry events such as the London Book Fair and the Frankfurt Book Fair and others. And she sits on the board of directors at Richard Hugo House here in Seattle, and also on the advisory board of the University of Washington's Translation Center. So with that, I'm going to hand this over in Elizabeth DeNoma's very capable hands, and enjoy this presentation. Come and join us for other programs, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Oh, Elizabeth, you are muted.
Thank you. Oh, rookie mistake. Thank you, Stina, and welcome everyone this morning. At least on the west coast of the US, it's morning. Before we get started today, I'd like to acknowledge that the physical location of the National Nordic Museum is on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present. And we honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. Thank you. So we're very pleased to have with us today Lisbeth Zornig Andersen, the author of Anger is My Middle Name, and her translator from Danish, Dr. Mark Mussari. I'm going to introduce both of them briefly, and we'll talk about Lisbeth's books and other subjects, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Feel free to leave questions, as Stina said, in the chat below. And the chat function here in Zoom, and we'll address them at the end of our discussion for the last 10 or so minutes, depending on how many there are. So, about our author, Lisbeth Zornig Andersen is a former children's ombudsman in Denmark, and the author of the best-selling memoir, Anger is My Middle Name, her first work to be translated into English. Already well-known in Denmark for her advocacy work and for My Childhood in Hell, a documentary detailing her early years. Lisbeth received global recognition in 2015 when she was charged and later sentenced for picking up a family of Syrian refugees in her car. This simple act of charity earned coverage in such publications as the Washington Post, Le Monde, The Guardian, The Huffington Post, and on air at the BBC and Al Jazeera, igniting an international debate about the ethics and legality of humanitarian aid. Lisbeth has also founded her own advisory consultancy and charitable foundation, where she continues her socially centered work. We also have with us today Dr. Mark Mussari, professional translator, scholar, and educator. He has a PhD in Scandinavian languages and literature from the University of Washington in Seattle. And Mark has taught at Villanova University, University of Washington, University of Arizona. His translations included Karsten Jensen's The First Stone, Dan Terrell's Murder in the Dark, and several books on Nordic design. Mark is also the author of numerous educational books and Danish Modern Between Art and Design, the first scholarly book written on the subject in English. Mark is a simply outstanding translator and one with whom I've had the privilege of working several times already and hope to have that privilege again. And I had the great pleasure of working with both Lisbeth and Mark to bring this important book into English. It was published last spring, just as the world was entering the COVID universe. So welcome, Mark, Lisbeth. I wish we were together in person, but it's so nice to have you here. Would you like to just take a minute and tell us how things are where you are?
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth and Mark, and everything is well here. Well, we have COVID-19 still with us, and new way of living like this, these Zoom meetings. But you know, it has given us time, my husband and I, to write 2 books while everything was shut down. So, you know, and get practicing and exercising and stuff like that. So, well, and in Denmark we are lucky to not have experienced so many deaths in because of so we're happy. Yeah.
Great. And Mark?
Yeah, Arizona is not doing too well with numbers. It's getting worse as it is in certain states. And I think we're all kind of waiting for probably a little more shutdown than we have right now. I think things are kind of open, but I think it's fortunate some ways to be in the state because it's dry and it's warm and you can be outside much longer than you can in many other places. That's the upside. We're at home with the cats so much they are now convinced we're nothing but their footmen. And that's the way it's going to be. We're the help. So other than that, just pushing along and waiting to move back east.
Well, thank you very much for coming and joining the discussion today. And I hope we'll see I assume we'll see a cat or two coming by, Mark. Is that?
Probably will, right across the desk.
Great. You know, the first thing that struck me when I read your book, Anger is My Middle Name, in Danish, was I found that the atmosphere that you described there almost unrecognizable. Many of us in North America, we have this perception of the Nordic countries, and Denmark in particular, that it's very cozy, that the people are the happiest in the world, and the social safety net protects all people, and it's one of the best in the world. So to see the level of neglect and abuse that you and your brothers suffer, and the sort of indifference and occasional incompetence of the social services was really shocking. At least it was very shocking to me. I don't know what your response to that was, Mark, but can you talk to us a little bit, Lisbeth, about that disconnect between the perception that the outside world has and your experience?
Yes. Denmark is known as, you know, the country of milk and honey. For most of the citizens, it's the truth. We have a really good system, and I actually think that we have one of the best social welfare systems in Denmark. But it seems like about 10% of the population is difficult to reach, despite these systems to react when children experience things that they shouldn't. And actually, we don't know why, but we know that a part of the problem is that actually there are poor people in Denmark, and 1% of the population in Denmark is children who lives in poverty. And there is a link, a really hard, clear link between poverty and other kinds of, you know, problems in the family. So that's one of the problems, and we haven't solved it. And we have another problem in Denmark, and I guess it's maybe the same in the States, that we have a population of young people who is really suffering mentally. 1 out of 5 young people are unhappy and feel distressed, and you know, they are going to be grown-ups in a short minute, and they will have children as well. As you know, I've got 5 and 2 grandchildren actually, and you know, and I can see it in my own family. I can see my nephews, nephews and is it nephew? Yeah, some of them, you know, children of my brothers. They are living in the same patterns and are not supported as they should be.
And they're not able to break that pattern. That's something that,
yeah, and it's been harder to break the pattern. We have a lot of you know, research and about a pattern. What do you call it? The negative social inheritance.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's become bigger. So we are getting. It's more and more difficult for Denmark to break that pattern actually, and we really don't know why, because nobody is starving, and we have this system. In Denmark, you can take an education for free, and you don't pay to go to university, to high school, and you'll get supported as a young person. You get money every month to your rent and food, and you know. So the formal frame of infrastructure is very okay, but it's hard to get those people educated despite of that.
Some people don't see themselves in that path, or they don't understand what would be necessary for them to get involved in that path, right?
And we don't know. We don't know what exactly is the turning point as my turning point. We don't know exactly how to bring it systematic, Mark.
Yeah,
Systematically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sets up the point of the part of the book that we wanted to read really well, because it shows this turning point for you, one of the pivotal moments in your experience. So Lisbeth's going to read a passage in her book for us, and that illustrates her connection with how important her connection with her social worker, who went on to become a major influence in her life and a very good friend, obviously. Karen, is it Gesling? Gesing?
Karen Gesing. Yeah.
She was a social worker that Lisbeth met when Lisbeth was in a treatment center for young girls with behavioral problems. So would you like to read that for us?
Yeah, and she was very old at that time, but it appears that she's only 20 years older than me. So now we are, you know, equal. So it's very funny. And we have a really good friendship today. So yeah, I'll try to read.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. I need my glasses for that. It's something with my age, I think. Okay. My life is busy. I am about 16. Yeah. So it's a 16-year-old girl who is speaking, writing. Yeah. My life is busy. I'm rowing, running, sewing clothes, going to school, doing my homework, seeing friends, taking care of my chores at Hylleholt, working at Svensson's several days a week now, and doing the bar scene in Nakskov every other weekend. I'm so busy that any change to my daily schedule make me feel as if I'm going to have a breakdown. I want to smash everything around me, although I don't do it. Everything goes dark and I see red until I can't even think straight. It might be a bus to Haslev that's late, a cancelled class at school, or Hylleholt wanting me to participate in something without warning me ahead of time. One day, Karen asks if we should expand our study session to include personal issues. My immediate impulse is to say no, but I trust Karen, who's now being named my guardian. I sense that I need to do something about all my rage, which I never show anyone, although it's eating me up inside. We start with a weekly discussion that takes place in a different room from where we do homework. So we are not mixing up homework and personal matters, says Karen. Karen lets me talk about whatever comes to mind. She doesn't offer any answers. She just asks questions. Sometimes we sit in silence while I'm either thinking or struggling to hold back the tears. She doesn't force me to say anything. She just listens and asks questions and is silent until I answer. Yet I still can't talk about the violence and the sexual assaults, or about the change in my personality when I'm in Naksko, which makes me ashamed. We talk a lot about shame, actually, and she says that nothing children like me have experienced is shameful. If anyone should feel shame, it's the adults who's let it happen. I hear that what she's saying, but I don't agree. I'm afraid that people will look at me in a different or negative way if they know what I have experienced and how I behaved. Karen especially mustn't see me that way. We continue our conversations through the next few months. They don't make me uncomfortable, but I become increasingly frustrated that I can't get any further, that I'm unable to talk about what really matters. I say that to Karen. After summer vacation in September of 1984, Karen brings a video camera to one of our conversations. What do you say we film you, Lisbeth, and then watch the tape together, she asks. I don't know what good that will do. It might be good for you to experience yourself, she says. Maybe you can see the fine person the rest of us see when we look at you. Even when we aren't looking at your grades or your ability to slice exactly 200 grams of a roast beef. Karen turns out on the video cam. I move around the room and respond to what she's asking me. She asks me to sing a song. I sing a couple of songs I remember the lyrics to, and then she turns off the camera. She puts the videotape in a player and we watch it together. I think my voice sounds hoarse, and I'm way too thin and round-shouldered, and my cheeks are too fat. I tell all that to Karen. Know what I see, Lisbeth? I see a young girl who is carrying too much weight on her shoulders, she says. And then I can't hold back the tears any longer. I cry as I try to tell her about Jan and Mom's assaults on me in Torre. I could tell her about so many other terrible experiences, but that's the one I land on. I describe in detail what happened, what was said at the time, how often it happened, and that they were both there, although Mom clearly didn't want to be. She just couldn't refuse. She couldn't protect me. I tell her about Mom saying Jan should make sure no one could tell. I felt as if my words would mean nothing, only physical evidence would. I sob, my head against her shoulder. I can't see Karen's face and I don't want to. I don't want her to be frightened. She holds me until my sobbing turns into sniffling and I'm overcome with exhaustion. Something I almost never feel. I'm proud of you, Lisbeth. Now we'll pack up our equipment and I think you should blow your nose and wash your face. We'll continue the discussion next week if you want to. Thanks. I say and then go to my room where I lay down on my bed and fall asleep. I'm awakened by the bell that always rings when it's mealtime at Hylleholt. I'm lightheaded. In the dining hall, I sit there, my eyes red and my face swollen, and laugh at everything. I feel like I've been drinking. I look over at Karen, who's sitting at another table. She looks the same way as always, which I don't understand. It's as if she hears the kinds of things I've told her every day. But maybe she does. Maybe some of the other girls have had the same experiences. We just don't share them with each other or the other adults. That same week, I decide I'm never going to Nakskov again. Rigmor informs mom, though I have no idea how she responds or if they even tell her the reason. Hylleholt notifies Ravnsborg Township about the assaults, but no police report is filed. I don't ask why, and mom doesn't try to contact me. Karen and I continue our weekly discussions which I really look forward to. We leave no stone unturned. We talk a lot about my time at the orphanage in Nakskov, especially the loneliness I felt and my inability to say what was wrong. All I could do was act up and feel bad about it. Instead of trying to find out why I was misbehaving, they simply told me to change my behavior and not take advantage of mom, who was having a hard time. I also tell Karen about my counting obsession, which she finds amusing. She says it's completely normal for children who feel unsafe to use rituals to bring stability in their lives. And here I thought I was just crazy. When I don't spend the weekend at Hylleholt, I go home with Karen and Børge, who live close to Faxe. As if by magic, the urge to go out and get laid has vanished. I work as much as I can at Svensson's, do my schoolwork and see my friends. I spend the weekends with Karen and Børge on the big couch in their living room, where there's also a large bookcase full of books and comics. I read from morning till night, stopping only to sleep. I'm tired in a way I've never known, so I have to sleep several times a day. I like it best when I fall asleep to the sound of Karen's and Børge's voices. I'm incredibly tired in school too, and they have to wake me up in German, Danish, English, and French. It can't go on, but I'll find some solution. During lunch, I go down to the girls' locker room and lie on a bench, my arms folded behind my head. If I sleep for 10 minutes, I can stay awake until I'm on the bus to Faxe Ladeplads, where I can catch another half hour of sleep. A few months after my conversation with Karen, Rigmor suggests that I start thinking about leaving Hylleholt. It's just before Christmas of 1984, and I'm shocked the first time she says it. I'm 16, in my junior year, and have broken all ties with my family. I have a couple of friends my own age and a boyfriend named Teddy, who was more like a friend than a lover. Otherwise, all I have in life are the butcher shop and the social workers at Hylleholt. I feel betrayed. Is this the thanks I get for opening up? I know girls can remain at Hylleholt until they're 18, so why can't I? And where am I supposed to live? Rigmor says there's not much more they can do for me. I need to get out of the cocoon I've created for myself. Karen, who supports Rigmor's decision, says they have found a psychologist named Mai in Copenhagen, who specializes in my kind of trauma, and that Ravnsborg Township will pay for it. Karen will still be my guardian, so I'll always have one, at least until I'm 18. I don't understand. I feel broken and frightened, but they're firm in their decision. Come April, I'll move to student housing at a teacher's college close to my high school in Haslev. I keep protesting, though I know it won't do any good. I need to prepare myself for leaving Faxe Ladeplads and the sanctuary of the rowing club Svensens, Fatina, and Hylholt.
Thank you so much for that. That is really such a moving and beautiful passage. Thank you for sharing it with us. And Mark, thank you for translating it.
It was a privilege to translate it.
Lisbeth, as you were reading that, I kept reflecting upon later comments that you've made and analysis that you've done about 5 factors that are instrumental for people. 5 factors that people have in common that helps them recover from significant trauma and be able to emerge from it. And I'm wondering if you would share those factors with us and maybe speak to how they reflect to this passage of your life that you've just shared with us.
Yeah. Well, I'm an economist. I'm not a psychologist. So I have it's some factors that I think did match my turning point, and I think that some other. I know that a lot of other young people can use this and use it because they write to me, and social workers use it as well. Well, the first is find the fire, and with that I mean everyone is passionate about something, maybe some odd thing, but everyone is passionate about something, and you have to find that passion where you are, get light in your eyes and feel dygtig, Mark, dygtig,
Skillful, clever.
yeah,
Skillful.
clever, yeah. So it's very important that everyone, every young people, every child feels that there's something they are unique at, and there is, promise, believe me. And the next thing, it's quite controversial, I think, in Denmark. It's I call it give love. You have to love those children, and actually I have participated on conferences and where I've given presentations and participated in panels, and everyone, every social worker in Denmark gets shocked every time I say you have to love those children, because love in the Danish way is you love your children, you love your husband, your wife, but you don't love foreign, you don't love children that you haven't brought up yourself. But I really mean it, and I felt that Karen loved me, and I felt that a lot of my teachers loved me, and they gave me that love that I didn't got from my parents. And the next thing that definitely was very important for me, it was that this Hylholt, that place, they showed me faith, because I did crazy things, really. I was drinking, I was going all the way, and really did things that I would worry about if it was my own children. Really. But they believed in me always, and they knew that she'll survive and she'll come back, and they never gave up faith in me. So that's important as well. And then support education. Education is the way out of that kind of family I was in. My 3 brothers, I know we are going to talk about them, but later. But they didn't get an education, and the difference for my life now and their lives, 2 of them are dead now, is that I became able to support myself financially, and got this freedom to do that. And the last thing, that we are not really good at it in Denmark, but we are practicing, and that's one of the things that I have worked with as a children's ombudsman, is to listen to children. So when I was a children's ombudsman, we made panels, a lot of panels of children who could educate us and tell us about everything: weight, schools, toilet in schools, mobile phones, cell phones, and everything. We asked children about everything because, you know, they are experts in themselves as well as we are in our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's great. That's wonderful information. Since you brought up your brothers, let's talk about them for a moment and look at the concept of resilience, which so defines your life, and talk about these factors you've just named for us, and how, I mean, it's a good comparison, since you did come from the same family of origin. See what exactly was different that you got from that list of factors, and maybe others that they didn't get in the same way.
Yeah. I think there are several factors, and it's hard to know which of them depend most, but they are boys. They were boys. I was a girl. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Denmark, the social workers and the whole system is more prepared or to take care of girls. They are not, you know, boys are struggling. They are what do you call that? Slåss. Very extrovert in there. You know, if there's something, if they have a problem, they are more likely to hit and not tell what's wrong. And you know, so we can see a big difference between girls and boys leaving that pattern or breaking the social negative inheritance. And I was the smallest. I was the youngest. So my three brothers took care of me. So I got I got some loving support from my, you know, from when I was really small. I think they really adored me, and they have never said no to me about anything. So, but they were not good, and they were really hard on each other. And then I met all those fantastic. It is not what I read here was not about my school teachers, but I had a lot of really good teachers in the primary school and high school as well, who really they supported me. They to think about what could I about education and dreams, and and they supported me in being good at school.
You can tell that they invested a lot in you, a lot of the teachers. It's really moving throughout the book. And it doesn't seem like your brothers got that same level of individual investment.
And we went to the same school, the first schools, the same schools. But, you know, there were 3 boys with 1 year between each other. And they were a crowd, a team. And it was hard to get into that team. I was only me, and big cheeks and blue eyes, and very good at grown-ups.
It helps to be good at grown-ups. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, the answer. Before we move on to talking about some aspects of your career and the world that happens after the book, I want to bring in Mark for a minute to talk about his experience translating the book. Mark, I remember having a couple of discussions with you about how moved we both were by this material, how important we thought it was. I'd like to know for you to share with us how you approached it. Were there any challenges inherent in the memoir genre for you? And how did you approach it any differently than you might have with literary fiction?
Yeah, I think there were two. Am I on? Can you hear me?
You're on.
I think there were two aspects there. One was I felt, well, it's funny because Elizabeth sent me the book and she said, I don't know if you want to do this job. She said, it might not be something you want to do. And I was sitting in a tea house and I thought, okay, I read through some of the PDF and I sat there for a while and thought about it. And I thought, yes, someone needs to do this and it needs to be done the right way because it's such weighty subject matter and it's very moving and very real. And I thought, okay, yeah, someone needs to do this. And I think I want to do it. So the first thing that happened was I felt a great commitment and I wrote to Lisbeth immediately about really doing right by little Lisbeth. One of the great things that Lisbeth did with this book is that she wrote each part of her life just almost as it was. She didn't really bring an adult's view. When she's a child, she's a child. And when she's the angry teenager, she's the angry teenager. She didn't bring in a lot of commentary, sort of framing it. She let you sort of see it. And I really like that about the book, but it required a great deal of acting on my part. I thought I've never done so much acting translating anything in my life because now I'm just this little child and it's a girl no less. And then the teenager was a little bit easier because I spent so many years teaching high school and I was used to angry teenagers. So, that wasn't as much of a stretch. But I felt a great commitment to getting her story right in English, the emotional part of it, everything about it, the interpersonal aspects. So those were challenges in a memoir that while you always do a certain amount of acting whenever you're translating any kind of fiction in narrative voice and characters, it was much stronger here. I mean, I really felt like I had to sort of become this narrator. I had to become this person and understand what she was going through as a little child and then again as a teenager and then, as a young adult. So those were the main challenges, I think. And it was moving and some of it was difficult. I think it was difficult to translate some of it, to describe what was happening and turn it into English. Because that's always the challenge of a translator in anything is, okay, this is how this is in the original language. What's the best way for this to be expressed in the target language? And that, in this case, was twice the challenge because of the emotional weight that so much of it carried.
Yeah, I can see that. And you really did it masterfully. For anybody who has not read this book, I'm just going to plug this again. You can get it if you're in Seattle, you can get it at the National Nordic Museum, but you can also order it online through the museum and I think through the usual suspects. So thank you, Mark. That it's such a beautifully translated book. I think that you're happy with it too, Lisbeth.
Yeah, very much, and it was interesting for me to revisit. I never read what I write, so I don't like to read what I write. So I had to, refresh, and I think that I think that in English it's much more beautiful, a beautiful language. I like it better in English than in Danish. And actually, the actor, I can't remember the actor's name who's reading it in what do you call that?
The audiobook?
Yeah, it's really good.
She's good. She was good.
Yeah, she's so good. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we should recommend that too. That's great. I remember hearing a snippet of it, and it is really powerful. So.
Both Michael, my husband, and I, we were crying sometimes when we heard, because she was able to with Mark's words and hers acting. It was almost as if it was me. Yeah.
A lot of authors say that it's such a strange experience to encounter their books in another language. It's like a different book, they say, in a way.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you
a better
find that?
in English.
Well, congratulations, Mark.
Yeah, I'll take that. That sounds good. Get it on tape.
You know, we talk a lot about resilience these days, and all of us, no matter what level of privilege we have right now, are needing to tap into our resistance and our resilience and bear up in this current moment. And I was wondering what you might recommend for us, Lisbeth, in terms of resilience. How can other people cultivate the resilience within themselves? You listed a lot of traits that were external, like getting help from other people and love. What are some practices that you could recommend for people if they want to be cultivating their own resilience and compassion?
Yeah. First of all, you have to know that it's never too late. I have seen people turning their lives upside down in the 30s or the 40s of their life. So it's never too late, but there's a lot more to repair when you start late. And you definitely need to have someone to support you, to encourage you, to laugh with you, and holding, and when you're crying, and sometimes it's it could be your husband or wife, or one of our closest friends. He's a former gang member, and he went to jail, and Hells Angels actually is called. You have that in the States as well, right?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, he was a high-standing Hells Angels gang member, and he went to jail, and there was a priest at the jail. So it was his turning point, and he was maybe 30, 32 or something. So actually, what I want to say is everyone can be that supporting person. You don't have to have an education. You just have to give a bit of yourself. And I learned that at Hylleholt. I learned it from Karen, from Rimor, from all my teachers. A lot of my teachers brought me home with them to, so I could have a meal or see how they lived, and they were making this person I am today because they gave a little bit of themselves, and we can all do that, and actually it's quite healing for ourselves to give something to others. So yeah,
right. It's yes, and I think it's an example that you internalized and reflect back. I'm thinking of that incident that I mentioned in the introduction when in 2016, 2015, when you encountered the Syrian refugees and tapped into your own compassion and shared humanity to help these people. Would you mind sharing that incident with us? Like, set it up for us, how you encountered these people and what happened?
Yeah. In 2015, that suddenly we are not used to that in Denmark. Suddenly, a lot of refugees crossed our borders, and from Syria mainly, and a lot of them was walking on the highway with small children, and they a lot of them wouldn't actually stay in Denmark because Denmark is known as a really tough country when it comes to refugees. So actually they wanted to go through Denmark and go to Sweden. And I was out doing a presentation, and afterwards I actually met a Syrian family with two small 5-year-old children, siblings, twins, and they were prepared to walk through Denmark. Denmark is small, but it's a long way to walk.
It's not walkable.
Yeah, it's a long walk. So I thought, well, I have an empty car, and they want to go to Sweden, so I took them in my car and brought them home to Michael, my husband, who served them cake and coffee, and then he brought them to a railway station where we bought them some tickets, and then they took to Sweden. And actually, they are really doing well in Sweden today. They are a middle class family. What do you call that? Michael, apoteker.
Yeah, pharmacist.
Yeah, and then are working as that now, and but because I'm a kind of known person in Denmark, not famous, but but known. A journalist saw what I did and filmed it, and it was in the media, and so I was sentenced. Michael and I was sentenced. It's about $8,000 as human smugglers, because
human trafficking. Human
trafficking. Yeah.
Wow.
And I still, my criminal record is I'm not sure I would be able to go to the States right now, actually, because I'm not sure I would get a visa because of that. So in a year or two, it's gone. Then I have a clean record.
We'll see you then. We'll see you when your record is expunged.
Yeah, but because I'm a known person in Denmark, it meant that a lot, and I mean a lot of people started their cars and drove to the south of Denmark, and took all the refugees. Actually, some people were writing to me, where are all the refugees? Because there were more cars than the refugees to pick up. So yeah, well, I'm very proud of it, actually.
Yeah, then I didn't realize that you had inspired all those other people to do the same thing, and that I think is really an important point, that demonstrating and showing and modeling compassion can be inspirational for people.
Yeah, actually, and I think that if the thing I'm most proud of is that I have inspired a lot of people to, to do things for other people. So yeah, and yeah.
I have a lot of more questions for you, but I'm noticing that we're like at 10 minutes out. So I want to make sure that our audience guests put their questions in the chat if they have them, before I just keep sending out my questions. But as they are doing it, I will ask you this. One of the themes in your work has been working with disenfranchised people, and people who are marginalized in one way or another. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that, because it seems as though you've done that through your IT work, through voter registration and voter engagement. Would you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was a director, CEO for a company, an IT company, which was hiring people with autism to be, testers, IT software testers, and stuff like that. And a very exciting, very interesting work I did there. And I learned a lot about autism, and also the gift that sometimes is in autism and disabilities for general. But I think the project I was most proud of was when we in 2013 made this campaign to get people on the edge of the society to vote. and we managed to get, Denmark engaged in that in a way so that the person, the 10% more of those people were voting that year. But the funny thing is that 4 years later, when it was the same municipality vote,
The vote,
yeah,
the choice,
hvad siger du? Valg?
that choice, the choice,
Yeah.
election, the election.
The 4 years later, when the same kind of election went on, no one wanted to support financially to support the same thing that we did, because Denmark isn't that interested in people with and on the edge of the society to vote, because you can't really figure out who they are going to vote for. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So in that next election, did you see the same turnout from the marginalized people, or did it fall back off?
No, it disappeared. It was only because people. It's actually quite stressful to be an alcoholic, to be a drug addict, to be mental ill. So to vote is a huge thing in a stressful daily routine about how to get enough money, how to get your drugs, how to. So you have to get the vote, you have to get. You have to go out so people where they are in the streets can vote in the streets. So we did that with the mobile voting systems.
That's great. I see that we have a couple of questions here, and I want to make sure we get to these. So I'm going to just jump in there. And here's a question from Lisa, and she's wondering, what gave you the courage and inspiration to put your story down in writing? And can you share anything specific that helped you know it was something you could do and wanted to do?
The last thing I have to hear one more time.
Sure. What gave you the courage and inspiration to put your story down, and how did you know you could do it?
Well, I think it was my husband, Michael. I told him my story, and he meant that there's a book in it, and it's an important story. And he knew I wasn't a writer, an author at that time, and he knew someone in Gyldendal who was publishing it in Denmark. So I thought, well, really, and can I write? Because I didn't know if I was an author. So actually, it's Michael's fault, and you know what? I think that everyone with my history and or similar histories where you have been mistreated as a child have to write it. You don't have to publish it. I always tell people that write it down, get it out of your system. You don't have to publish it. And people have to know that I was 42 because before I published my story, I was past, my children were relatively big. I had my career in place, and I didn't risk that much as if I was 25.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Another member of our audience. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a good question.
Another question from the audience is: can you compare the resources available for neglected children in Sweden, Finland, and Denmark? And I imagine Norway as well.
Yeah, actually, when we compare ourselves with the other Scandinavian countries, it's Norway and Sweden, and I think Finland as well. When it comes to schools, they are far much better than we are, actually. And we compare. One of the things that I managed to get through with when I was a children's ombudsman was actually a setup that has been in Sweden for years. It's called a children's house, and it's a house where if you have been beaten or experienced sexual assault, you will be taken to that house, and then there is police, retsmediciner, hvad hedder det, Michael?
Hvad hedder det?
Retsmediciner.
Retsmediciner.
No, I have
medical examiner. Medical examiner.
Yeah, forensic.
Yeah, the forensic person.
Yeah. And you have social workers and you have psychologists in the same place, so the children don't have to be driven around to be medically examined and to the police, and so it's a Swedish thing. And actually, I have had dinner with the Swedish royal family, because in Sweden every year they open their castle for people who are working with children, and then they have one article from the children's the convention of UN's convention.
Children's rights.
Rights, yeah. And they have one article as a theme that year, and then they have a lot of presentations, and then we eat with the family, eat dinner, and you don't have that in Denmark. So I have met the Swedish royal family, but not the Danish.
Not yet. That may still be in the offing. We've got, I think we're going to go a little bit over. We have time for one more question here. And this is from Mora. She says she's loving your memoir. And how do you approach parenthood when you didn't have good models yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I went to the library, which I've done that my whole life. I have to read about this. So I borrowed every book about children from 0 to 18, and I read them all. And one of my favorite authors, he's a social worker, very famous in Denmark. He was a really good book about not yelling at children. And he got a son who was called Asbjørn. So my first son I called Asbjørn. And I have only yelled at Asbjørn maybe 5-7 times in his whole childhood because of this author. Yeah.
Very American.
And then I have Karen, of course, because she has been my mentor all the time.
Right. So you did have models. They just didn't happen to be your family. That's wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone who's left. I don't know if you've had a chance to read these, Lisbeth, but there's a lot of appreciation for your book in the comments. So you should take a look. I'm going to ask both you and Mark one final question and then close with some ending notes. And that is, what are you working on now? I know you're involved in like a wellness project, and you've written another book.
Yeah, I've written this book. The publisher has called it the Zornig Cure. Well, it was my idea, but I realized that if I want to get old and healthy, I have to work with my body, because I've been so sick all my life, and I have never treated my body as it should be. I've been in my head all the time, and I think that there's a way of healing through the body and not only through the head. So that's my new project. And maybe one day Mark is going to translate it. I hope.
I hope so too.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? Is there a Mussari cure in the works?
No, well, no, but there's, I've been working on a kind of it's a pet project of mine that I want to get translated rather than the work that I've been given. And that is Christian Kantmann was a Danish author who was bludgeoned to death, actually, sadly, by his lover when he was in his 40s. But he wrote one of the world's first memoirs of coming out and being himself back in '77. And it's an incredible book. It's extremely honest. It's well written. It's engaging from beginning to end. It's that mix of not sure what's fiction and what's real, but it doesn't matter. And so that's kind of been my my pet project right now. I'm working on that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lisbeth, I didn't mean to talk over you. Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's very important work you're doing there, Mark.
Yeah, it's sad that Kantmann has never been translated into English.
Yeah, strange.
Well, let's change that.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark and Lisbeth, and thank you, everybody who attended. I'm sorry if there was a question I missed. There were some longer paragraphs in there, but Lisbeth, you should definitely take a look because there's a lot of appreciation for your work, and Mark too. Obviously, you should take a look. And if anyone hasn't read "Anger Is My Middle Name," I would strongly advocate for getting a copy of that. So thank you. In the next session of Meet the Author, which will be in January, we'll be joined by Joachim and Ingrid Wahl, authors of A Silenced Voice, The Life of Journalist Kim Wahl. Kim Wahl was 31-year-old Swedish freelance journalist with a rising career when, in the summer of 2017, she followed a story that led to an eccentric inventor in Copenhagen. And instead of writing the next day's headline, she's become one. Many of you will be familiar with this story, and it will be a riveting conversation in January. In closing, please consider making a donation to the National Nordic Museum through their website if you're in a position to do so. It's a truly impressive organization with a wide array of diverse programming. And this week, there's going to be a virtual panel about Nordic colonialism in the Caribbean and another book talk by Swedish chef Magnus Nilsson. And it's both of which I hope to attend, and I hope to see you there if possible. And next time, if not. So we'll sign off.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for being here.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.